But yeah, guys, welcome back to another episode in season 3. And Holy, I thought our last episode was pretty well. I got good feedback. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I listened to it on my way to work the next day, and I'm like, yeah, I'd listen to this.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
mean, I always test
yes.
it out in like the car. The car test is big. Like, as much as I
Mhm.
love to hear myself talk, I did test it in the car and like it sounded good. I liked it. It was nice. It was straightforward, to the
I'm
point.
a fan already, man. I don't know what to say.
And then
I've followed all of our socials.
there you go. And people PN'd me and said it was good. So that was nice. Random people that know me, but also are random enough to think it's good.
Yeah,
But
must be nice. I
today,
didn't get a single compliment, but it's cool.
it'll come. But what's cool is today, as far as our roadmap goes for our aggressive episode strategy, we're doing Classic Plus Reimagined, more than just Endgame. What does that mean? And also, to let everybody know, we actually have some guests in here today, some of our raiders from the guild, good friends we met in SOD, and yeah, welcome Ben and welcome Qui-Gon.
Woohoo!
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
awesome. So we met what, and during pre-Nax during Kara.
We met in Nax. Actually, we were both
in
returning
Nax.
to the game.
That's right.
And
it was our rat run.
The rat run.
We were supposed to come back for a week. I convinced them to come back during my spring break, and we've been here ever since.
It's been fun. No, it was cool because like we set up this like rat run in raid, which was, we all have like the sweaty parse raids where everybody's like super Chad and whatnot. A part of the experience, I think, is just like raiding in kind of a shitty raid. Like it's not supposed to be all parses and speed. Sometimes it's like almost fun to just experience what the raid was intended to be like with like undergeared characters and like a hodgepodge of craziness, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, like I showed up on my warrior, literally named Bad Warrior, and I had about 6 hours time played on that character. I had gotten speed run all the way to 60. I was missing trinkets, like I was in green gear, like didn't have weapon skill, and yeah, that's our rat raid.
Yeah, but I know for today we're talking about Classic Plus. Now we got a whole experience in SOD, which is like, I guess like the pre-patch of Classic Plus, or like their experiment that figured out a lot of things that could work. But I've heard us talk a lot in chat about what it could be, and people bring it up all the time, even now, even though it's not going to come out for probably 2 years or so, if it's a thing. But what does like a Classic Plus mean to everybody here?
I think for me, Classic Plus means the community aspect of Classic. One of the things that really attracts me to Classic is it's very guild based, and playing with the same group of people. So I think incorporating that, incorporating the lore, the original storyline that kind of drew us all to the game to begin with. If you're like me and you've been playing since 2004, and you're old, but and seeing some of the things that we've seen along the way, but with fresh twists and additions to help balance the game, and add new content like they've done some inside as well.
I think for me, when I think of Classic Plus and why Classic World of Warcraft has been such an enduring like game by itself, but also you could say like a mode of the greater WoW game. To me, I mean, like I've played a lot of MMOs. Final Fantasy 11 was my first MMO. Didn't have like a credit card or whatever to play EverQuest, but I was able to jump into Final Fantasy 11, and then I played quite a few MMOs since then. And if you look at modern or retail World of Warcraft and other MMOs, like for instance Final Fantasy 14, in modern WoW or in 14, you are either the hero of light or you're a champion, and the story has sort of incorporated you as maybe the chosen one archetype. But in original Classic, I think it's fair to say that the world was the main character. And there was much more a sense of you're an adventurer, and yeah, you level up and you conquer dungeons and you conquer raids, but you're still basically just like a soldier or at most a hero of your faction. And so the world is one of the critical elements, I think, that makes Classic, and the fact that you are just a participant in that world. But I agree with what Ben said, that, you know, a huge part of it is undoubtedly the social aspect, that, as you know, if anybody who runs a dungeon in retail right now knows, that's dead.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. You know, the world's the main character. It's a social game that is guild driven, community driven. Playing in this world where you are a adventurer, that makes total sense. Like, but the for me, like my Classic Plus, like I want this game, you know, when and if it comes out, I want it to be developed with the next generation in mind. Like, I don't see the long term viability of this game. Um, if it completely panders to the existing player base, you know, like you mentioned before, you know, some of us are getting a little bit older, and I think Classic Plus really needs to have, um, you know, kids that are in high school now, like we once were, in mind when they make this. I think you can catch lightning in a bottle twice. You know, World of Warcraft, when it first released, caught the world by storm. It was insanely popular. And I think they can do it again. I mean, they have the resources, they have the talent. Um, but yeah, I think Classic Plus, they need to expand their horizons and attract a new audience to really breathe life into it.
I think that really begs a big question, and maybe I think maybe one of the later episodes is focused keenly on this. So maybe we won't need to go into the weeds on it. But what is the ultimate goal? Because right there, Holy, I get exactly what you're saying. But one of the fundamental problems with an MMO, right, is how long it takes to be able to play with your friends. So, like, if you're starting with a group of friends and everybody starts at level 1 and you level together, perfect. But, like, let's say you all get to level 10, and your friend wants to join. Okay, maybe not the biggest time to catch up, but there's a time investment, and that's going to also require the rest of you to either level another character or stop leveling and let that person level up. But what happens when they get to 60, right? So in order for me to jump into the game, I've got to I've got to pick my character, pick my name, go through the character customization. Now I've got to, figure out how to play the game. And now I've got to, learn how to navigate, use my abilities. Well, now I got to level to 60, but I also got to get my mount. I got to level professions and figure those out. Right. So there's like a ton of roadblocks in the MMO game, just by its very nature. That's always going to take a lot of time unless we fundamentally change how that works and how leveling works. And so it really goes down to, who is Classic Plus for? Is it for the people that idealize the classic environment, like the classic era, and they want changes? Or is it people who maybe want all the benefits of like retail WoW, which you can level pretty fast, but there's still a pretty good time investment there. And it has a lot of the quality of life, but maybe it's set in Azeroth, and that's it. So I think like that has to be one of the fundamental pillars of Blizzard's thinking of what is Classic Plus and who is the audience.
I think you're right. But yeah, that's definitely a question that's probably like, I think what is going to work out best, because like World of Warcraft players are notoriously fickle, and it seems like they don't a lot of the times know what they actually want. I'm kind of hoping that Blizzard kind of just creates. I mean, they used to be able to make really good games, and maybe it's hopium. I'm just hoping like they can just give us another classic, Blizzard title. I mean, we haven't had one in a while, so.
Well, I think for like the leveling experience, I think Saw did something right with capping levels for a while. That was really cool. Hold on.
Serious PvP going on.
Yep, got it. But like capping the levels at 20. Yeah, dude, that was a fight. Capping levels at 25 for a while to let people catch up. That whole point of like, if your friends out level you and you go a little slower, you lose the aspect of your socialness. Like, and our guild's in a specific spot. Like, we always start with like 40 people. Like, we have an entire group of people to like play with, bounce off of, and that is like the benefit of being in a long-term team. And like when Classic Plus launches, Quigon and Ben, you'll be with us. So it's like, hey, in 2020, whenever it comes out, 2027 or whatever, like we'll be able to all jump in and just have a huge team to bounce off and play with immediately. But like Saw did that pretty well with gating levels, like keeping everybody at 25. The entire base got there. It came with its own problems too, but overall pretty good. But that's one of the things that that people kind of like really talk about is like reworking the core loop instead of like, obviously Endgame's really important. And hold on, I'm going to sneeze. Obviously Endgame's really important, but the world is ultimately what keeps everything going. You know, because eventually the raids are going to be done. You know, like just SC. We're at the very end of SC, and like people are going away, and it's harder to find people in the open world to PvP with because there's just less people. And then you know, things like, you know, we talk about keeping the world relevant. It's like flying, in my opinion, is like a terrible thing for an MMO. It's cool that you can fly, always super cool, but you know, flying over entire zones just takes a player out of the experience, in my opinion. That's a whole nother topic. But like, I mean, it's a fundamental, almost like philosophical question. You know, like, who is this experience for? You know, who should they target? I mean, like, the big younger generation right now, like, and you think about our gaming experience, all of us are in our 30s, right? We grew up, yeah, we grew up with games that were just games, and every year games changed. We experienced, I mean, so much in so much time. I mean, like
Mario 64,
yeah, like
Ocarina of Time.
The 10-year experience for us for gaming was wild because like we went from N64, PS1, PS2, PS3, like all these things. And then if you just look at like what's happened the past 10 years, there's legitimately been kids that went through the same age cycle as us that have only played Fortnite for 10 years.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like legitimately, it is like,
or Minecraft or something. Yeah.
And
Yep.
I mean, God knows I love Minecraft, but like that's their whole that's their whole experience. Yeah, that's their everything. And like, dude, the shit that I went through, it's like I just want to buy one of those like N64 4Ks that are coming out or whatever, and like my son and my daughter, that's all they get. You get to just this is your library games. That's all you get. I'm not letting you play nothing else. You get once you beat Ocarina of Time by yourself, I'll let you move on. You know, like because it's a fundamental game that teaches you how to solve problems and all this different really cool stuff. So, and yeah, classic WoW is such a world building, it keeps you involved thing that's I mean, one of the reasons that classic was so dramatically popular in 2019. It's a big topic, and I'm curious to hear what other people think. There's just so much to unpack there. But
well, I mean, if you talk about leveling, you know, there's 4 of us in here, and I bet we have 4 different relationships with leveling. I know Ben does for sure, and he and I see leveling very differently. So if we're talking about reworking leveling and looking at that, I guess like to start with 2 questions that I would pose to everyone is: do you enjoy leveling, and do you think gatekeeping at certain checkpoints, because all of us have played various versions of WoW, should Classic Plus do the same thing? Should we stop at every 20 levels or every 10 levels or so and experience the game in the initial release of Classic Plus?
So, I mean, I would say that in its present form, whether it's SOD or regular Classic or what have you, even retail, I don't enjoy leveling, but I want to enjoy leveling. Like the perfect state of the game for me would be if I am just playing the video game and leveling is just a natural, didn't even notice it happened consequence of playing the game. Like I would like to be immersed. I'd like to be playing with my friends, adventuring, questing, dungeoning, whatever activity I chose to be doing. I would like to be getting experience from doing it, not have to be thinking about whether I'm, hitting yellow mobs to getting, ideal experience from them or in the right zones. I would just like to be playing the game, organically exploring and adventuring with my friends, and then leveling just the byproduct of playing the video game. I just want to play a video game. I don't want to have to think so hard about it.
yeah, I mean, I think what was kind of cool, honestly, that made like playing early level characters like in SOD was like the rune vendor, because you got all your runes at once and your character felt really powerful from level 1. And like I've got another priest that I've just been casually playing that's like not very high. It's like almost level 20 or something, but I just log on when I'm logged out somewhere else. And it's like I have all the abilities, so it's kind of fun, But that's another thing. But like Sod and Season of Mastery are completely two different things. They're not Classic Plus. But like what are we missing from like the experience so far that is like would be a key thing?
As an altaholic here, speaking to someone who has every class at max level and two rogues and 2 druids.
Shout out Helen Wong.
That's right. Helen Wong is my homegirl. I hate leveling characters, but I love playing different characters. The best leveling experience that I can remember from WoW, and what I would really like to see more incorporated, was like the Wrathgate quest line in Wrath. That entire zone was built around the lore of the final raid of the expansion. And it was immersive, and look who it is. It was immersive. It had characters that we all knew in the universe. It had relevance to the storyline, and it just felt like you were there. And like Holy was just saying, like it just felt like I was playing the game in that moment, rather than just going through the motions of I'm going to go kill 8 of these and then run back and turn that in. Then I'm going to go pick up 8 of these.
Yeah,
I would love to see.
Sorry. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, but later expansions really delivered on that immersive style of gameplay and storytelling. Obviously, you need to have fluff littered about, but if I'm out there just doing a fetch quest or a kill quest or a kill these dudes to get this thing to turn into that guy, like give me reputation or something, because I'm out there helping the citizens of Azeroth or whoever the local government for these people are. At least give me some like passive reputation to go along with it. Because you can just go to a zone nowadays in regular classic and do a bunch of quests, and it's just like, why am I doing this? I'm not reading any of these quests. I'm not invested in any of this stuff. I'm just trying to make the blue bar go up and get the ding. I want to. It's just. It needs to be better in Classic Plus.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, if we're talking Classic Plus here, there are so many characters that are in Classic really could have expanded storylines. And there's some of the skeleton is already there. Like Malfurion is just sitting in Moonglade and is one of the most significant characters in Druid lore. Why not tap into that? I thought the Ashbringer quest line that they put in was tremendous in this. Like it feels like they actually told a little bit of the story of the Ashbringer.
They filled in the gaps too.
Yeah. And Ragnaros is a character that's so significant that he's the final boss of 2 raid instances. And there's not a ton of, real story other than he's the big bad. We got Neff, who's in multiple instances. There's so many opportunities to really expand on some of these. And maybe not so much like the Onyxia attunement quest line, but a little more storytelling. The storytelling is really what draws me to the game, and the lore and the background. The old gods. Yeah, we kill Cthulhu. Okay, cool. Who's Cthulhu and why is he significant? There's the AQ event is tremendous. There's no real explanation as to why this is all there, and it seems like there's so many opportunities to provide stuff like that.
Yeah,
I mean, I think if you were to look at what they're doing in retail or modern WoW, they're trying to do that right. They're kind of aping what games like Final Fantasy 14 and SWTOR and other games where they have distinct storylines and through lines, through zones, and through the overall expansion. And they have sort of their main story quest to borrow a term from Final Fantasy. And I think that they have a real opportunity to do that in Classic Plus, to bring that system into Classic Plus and redesign storylines. Now, there are storylines that exist, right? Because the big fundamental difference is WoW is sort of telling vignettes. Like there are through lines between, like for instance, probably the most famous in the early game is what? The Defias storyline. You start literally level 1 or 2 learning about the Defias, and that takes you all the way through at least 2 or 3 zones and into Dead Mines for sure. But also that sort of also leads into the Missing King quest lines, or the Missing Diplomat rather. And so there are instances of that, but it's a completely different style of storytelling that exists in Classic, in the original Classic, versus even what they're doing nowadays in the War Within. So I think that if you kind of blend those two, you touched on something else that's really important, and it's focusing on the original setting of WoW and bringing more elements from Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3, and their expansions into the main story, highlighting those characters that made the franchise famous, while also maybe creating new stories for new characters as well. I mean, for instance, all of us probably thought, dude, this Bolvar guy looks like a complete badass when we were playing the game originally. And maybe we recognized the name, maybe we didn't. But like, okay, let's give him a lot more.
Citadel.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
so yeah, so like
that guy.
Beefing up some of these stories, I think they can, but it's going to have to be. How do we say this? There's also a lot of people that play WoW, and I'm sure all of us are guilty of this, where we've got Leatrix Plus running. Let's just automate this. I just got to get through, get my ding for the day, and get back to real life. So, how many of the quests are we actually reading, and are they already doing a pretty decent job? But maybe do they need to do a job that matches the player base's, for lack of better words, attention span in 2020s versus 2004. But something I think that Alth said earlier, and I'll say, to answer my own questions, I do like leveling. I really do, especially with 5 kids and not having a whole lot of time to play. Some days, just log on, get a third of a level, or get a level if I get into a groove, and log out. Okay, dopamine hit. But I will say, having leveled many, many characters over 20 years in various versions of WoW, I like going back to Anniversary Realm right now. It's way too slow. And I think Classic Plus is going to have to either have a more engaging or a faster paced leveling speed if it's going to succeed. I don't think it has to be crazy like 7x or anything like that. But I do think they can mitigate the leveling speed by adding a ton more quests, a ton more opportunities to gain experience, like PvP leveling. And I think that things like the sleeping bag, expanding on the sleeping bag system and allowing us to accrue rested XP faster is probably a really good way to solve a lot of the leveling speed problems without just completely nerfing the leveling experience.
Yeah, that's like a big point, even in like my outline, was like the leveling game. It's super slow and arduous in Classic. I've even thought of like, because I think like you're coming at it from like a very story driven perspective, which is, I don't know a lot of WoW lore. I've learned a lot. I haven't played WoW as long as most people. I played it a good while, 6 something years, but that's, to some, it's like rookie numbers, the people know a shit ton. I always thought of like adding mechanics to the game to help level are cool. You know how like in most modern games, like a new game plus is a thing. Where like you'd move faster the second time. So like, let's say like, this is just me riffing, but like you level your first character. It's not the fastest process in the world, but it's your first character. But then on the same account, your next character gets like a bonus because it's your next character.
They did that in the War Within. They've added that in. Yeah.
Okay.
They should absolutely bring that system to Classic Plus.
Yeah, because I want that.
Yeah, it's just slow. And the problem is like once you're at Endgame, the whole point of leveling again in many ways is to get to Endgame so you can continue to do like new raids and stuff with a different class or character. And like you feel kind of left out if you're not, like there's a lot of pressure. That's why boosting is such a popular thing, because people just don't want to go through it again. And I think, stuff like that's fine. But some of the questions, that I've kind of jotted down, like how would be like redesign replayable content at like 30, level 45, stuff like that. You know, like even like BFD and Nomer, like we scaled out of them. How do you keep BFD and Nomer relevant even at like endgame stuff like that? You know,
Well, I think it's, I really, really in particular enjoyed what they did with Nomer inside. You know, and they redid the remake of Dead Mines in Kata, and you can play it at max level or lower level. And it's, it seems like there just needs to be some scaling to some of the dungeons. Like they unlock at X level and they scale, or maybe there is a level 30 to 35 version, and then there's a max level version. And I think that's something that could be done. The Sunken Temple I thought was great for the first 12 weeks, and then it was something.
And then we
else.
quit the game.
Yeah.
Then our guild fell apart for the third time.
I feel like the 10 week Sunken Temple was more like just a project management issue at work. You know what I'm saying? I think it was. I think it was.
No,
like
that was
like
the infamous Blizzard marketing team. Be like, hey, this is really popular. Kill it. Bring it back to retail.
The actual raid didn't last more than 3 days, and then we got the scuff nerf version because people cried too hard.
Yeah, and they dragged the guys on forever, but.
I think ST at 50 may have been a mistake. I think if it had been at 45, maybe, but like you're at 50, you're so close to 60. You're so like the end is in sight. Having it last as long as it did, I think was definitely a big mistake.
Yeah, and also like ST was a big social dynamic shift for the entire player base.
Yeah, sure.
We went from 10 mans to 20 mans. Like for us, we were prepared, but like 70% of the player base or guilds were not prepared. So like,
Illidan was right.
One of the things.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ollie. No, you're good.
Okay, yeah. So like for reworking the leveling game, like kind of what I want to see is the way these games get played. You have your friend group, and everyone has various degrees of availability. So eventually, someone's going to be off to the races and end up gapping everyone leveling wise. So, like, I would like to see all like group content to be able to be enjoyed at whatever level and still provide meaningful character progression. So if we're doing Dead Mines and my buddy's level 20, but I've shot off and I'm level 35 now, I would like to have a power squish and still be able to perform on par with my friends in that dungeon and also get experience. And something else too, like how you can auto pass on loot. I would like to have an option where if none of the loot that's dropping in that dungeon, I would like to get a MacGuffin coin instead for killing these bosses. That, if I get to endgame and I have 45 MacGuffin coins, stored up, and I can't get my Hodge to drop, maybe I can go buy it. If by doing the BRD dungeon, I also get some reputation. Maybe there's a reputation vendor that I can get these like really nice items that I can't, drop for me. And if I have enough MacGuffin coins stored up, maybe I could just buy it.
All of these systems they've incorporated in later versions and have been wildly successful.
Mm-hmm. So like retail's not always bad. Like there are problems in Classic, and they develop solutions for them in the future. So that's what I'm saying is like Classic Plus. Like I really want to see it. I want my world. I want my Classic world. But I want them to finish it, and I want them to bring in modern systems.
It feels like we're missing the finishing layer of icing.
Well, that's how it was in the first place, but we just didn't know back then. But they've spilled the beans in the 2 decades, since, and all the Blizzard's own retrospectives and the books they've written. They'd be like, "Oh yeah, I can't believe we shipped half of that stuff." The games, and Season of Discovery really brought all these gaping holes in the world to life. Be like, "Oh yeah, shit, this place is fucking empty." There's just total zones that just like straight up, there's no point to them. There's nothing there, and then there never was since.
Yeah, I mean, I think for instance, Blizzard has always been at its best, and I think most people would agree with this. Blizzard has always been at its best when there was competition to steal ideas from. There's definitely competition in the MMO market to steal ideas from, and they've done that over the last few years, basically since they got off their butt from Shadowlands and started actually trying to make the game good again. So they've stolen a lot of ideas from other games. That's right. And then but they can also steal for themselves, just like you were saying. So, like for instance, I don't want to keep coming back to Final Fantasy, but it has the system that you're describing, and WoW has sort of brought this with like the quest sync system in modern WoW. But let's take it a step further. Let's have level sync, and maybe we don't queue and teleport to the dungeon. That's a pretty hot topic right there. But we can level sync, and exactly like you said, I level sync down to, let's say the recommended level for Dead Mines is 20. Okay, I'm synced to 20, but I get experience proportional to my actual level, and all the stuff that you just said. That's a great way to keep the game social and relevant. We talk about like how to add replayability, I think is what you said, Alth, and how do we take some of the stuff like from SOD, like the BFD raid or the Nurma raid. Boris sort of like, or Ben sort of kind of jumped on this, but I would say let's implement a lot of things, and let's implement XP leveling from Battlegrounds and PvP. Let's implement the leveling raids, and what we can do is, for instance, like let's do let's take the first one, BFD. Maybe BFD has a 3-day lockout or even a daily lockout, and maybe we just sort of decrease the amount of XP that you get if it's a daily lockout, but it's still worth doing. Like it's still significant portion of your level every time you do it until a certain level, and you've out leveled it. Well, then we could also have a level 60 version. And I think you can incorporate like the level 60 version of 10-man BFD and 10-man Nomer as sort of like the ZG raids between phases that don't have a ZG. And so there's some catch-up mechanic raids or some catch-up raids that would occur once we get to 60. I think you also do the replayability by just adding a ton more quests. You add more zones, you add more subzones, you fill the old world out with all the missing content. This is why I think, and we kind of got into this a little bit in guild chat in Discord a couple days ago. People say like it's a waste of time to add the more leveling content. No, it's not. Because first of all, it's important to recognize everybody plays this game for different reasons. There are a significant portion of people that never raid or that never really do much more than Molten Core. We can look at the drop off of population once AQ40 comes out in every version of Classic. So there are people that like to raid, there are people that love to raid, and there are people that like sort of raid and they do it, but they really enjoy living in the world and leveling and experiencing the storyline and doing those things. And so you make content for everybody, like Blizzard's always been good at. But why is it important to have all these different leveling dungeons added and different leveling zones? Well, like let's say that we implement the systems we're talking about. You level to 60, your next character gets a 10% experience boost. Heck, let's throw in heirlooms so that we can really speed up the leveling after you've bought in and you've earned it and played the game. Well, maybe now instead of just doing the usual Elwind, then I'm going to go to Westfall, then I'm going to go to Red Ridge after that, or Loch Modan. We add in some additional quests or different subzones within some of these zones, and that changes the way I level. Like if I had these leveling speed increases that I've earned through playing the game already, I don't have to take those same progressions. I can focus on the new content, the new dungeons, and have a different way to experience and replay the game that's different. I think having those incursions get a lot of hate, right? But I think when they finally fixed incursions in the following phase and they made them daily quest hubs, cool. Why not have a daily quest hub where it takes 5 people, you go in, you have an outdoor dungeon adventure basically, and you come out with like a level of experience in 30, 45 minutes, but you can only do it once a day. And maybe they have it like in some of the gaps of the leveling process that's the worst, like, the 30s to 40s or in the 50s to 60s. And they add in like the Black Rock dailies and stuff like that. I think that those things all together work to have a smoother leveling process. It still gets you out in the world, being social, running dungeons, running raids. It gets you playing the game. And it doesn't necessarily have to rely just on I'm killing 20 boars. Now I'm going to go kill 20 black boars, and then I'm going to go back to those boars I already killed and get 10 pieces of meat. So I think those are lots of ways.
Why are we killing black boars?
Yeah,
because they give better rewards, I guess. I don't know.
I like kill quests personally because it's easy.
Just sure. I mean, so do I. I mean, like I'd rather do that than collection quests.
No, yeah. But I
Nothing
think
better than a good escort quest, if you ask me.
Oh yeah, especially when they RP walk the whole time, right?
Oh, they have to. They can't be running. They're not.
So,
They're
yeah,
not
that's-
adventurers.
Hey, I need
That's
to
why
get
they
my
need to be
weapon and
escorted.
armor. I'm going to go ahead and walk as slowly as possible through enemy territory.
oh,
Get wrecked.
I know. I knew he was going to do that. Yeah.
Oh,
Smart.
sorry.
I'm getting back. Hold on. Give me a second.
How are you watching this footage?
I'm in Black Dark Mountain with them
Oh, we're
right now.
together.
Okay.
We're together.
Okay.
Okay. So,
Oh, y'all are together, right? Cool.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
It's June. We'll just cut that part out.
my editor will fix that. So, I mean, there's a lot of things, you can implement in a more, you've noted on a lot of things, Qui-Gon was like, kind of, it's basically a big overhaul. And obviously with unlimited budget, a lot of these things become a reality. I think that was a big SOD limiting factor, was that they just had limited dev time on a lot of these ideas. And a lot of things felt rushed because, well, they were rushed. Like Incursions
Sure.
was a good example. It was rushed. And like there was pressure to catch up and get to the 40 as fast as possible and all this
It's
stuff.
clear
And or
SE
50 or
was
whatever.
rushed as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
The
the boss encounters are great, but the resources to build the environment was, well, let's just recycle what we already have.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, there's it's really difficult because the art of the possible is there. There's so much, but then like I have to think of the reality of it, This technically isn't a passion project where you see things like, what is it, Turtle Wow, which obviously they've figured out a way to monetize it, but it started out as a passion project, and there's no board of directors breathing down your neck, and all that stuff. I mean, your superiors, and
I think it's fair to say that
Ben.
Classic Plus is going to have a full, maybe not like full retail, right? But like it's going to have a relatively full dev team. It's going to have to be a tent pole portion of Blizzard's offering. And I would even say Classic Plus may come at the expense of continuing the Classic progression servers. And not that they put maybe a lot of dev time in. Cata Classic had a lot of issues, right? That never got fixed or barely got fixed. But they seem to be doing a lot of work on MOP. But unless they're going to just continue to hire, which they have been hiring additional staff for the Classic team based on what we've read and seen, they're either going to have a dedicated Classic Plus team, or they may have to scale back what they're doing on the Classic scene as a whole to focus that talent. Because I do think if they try to nickel and dime the Classic Plus experience, it's going to fail. And it's going to be a very embarrassing failure for them if private server developers, for the reasons you just said, deliver a better product and deliver a more polished product than professional developers. And so I understand like the capitalistic mindset of it's going to have an ROI and it's going to have to make Blizzard money. But I really hope that they give the developers the classic Blizzard, the room for the classic Blizzard ethos of like, it's ready when it's ready, and to come out and deliver something that exceeds even most cynical people's expectations. Yeah. I think if they incorporate a lot of the stuff that SOD already established, but tune it back and make it make more sense in the Classic world, I think that's given them a really good running start.
Yeah, I mean, I'd really question, like, the ultimate question I'd have for like the Classic team. Like, so are they making a game that they want to play? Or are they making it because it's their job?
That's a great question.
That's a great
question. In the past,
yeah,
so many
that's one of the
reasons.
That's one of the
they made WoW to play it.
So great. Yeah, like, and now, I mean, I could totally see. I mean, Blizzard is a multi-billion-dollar company. They're just developers at work, like day in, day out. That's why you'd see like in SOD, like some shit would go down on Friday and not even get touched until like the next week. Like
they'd walk in Monday morning and be like,
"Oh,
what's
fuck!"
happening?
And, like everything blew up over the weekend.
I had no idea.
It's crazy, but I'm trying to think of like what gets me logging in. Like what makes me log into this game. I like being in the open world. I enjoy PvPing. I like just doing old content. I like going back to BFD. I like when we go to Nomer, even though it just falls over, because sometimes we get to give people tours. Like what you said before is like having versions of that scale to like level 60. So you still have like a speedrunning community around Nomer. You still have blogs on Warcraft logs that are relevant for a more competitive landscape beyond like the in-game raids and stuff. And then, finding a way to make, the world, I guess, more interactive on purpose, like overhauling, like I wouldn't necessarily say overhauling how PvP functions, but like how we PvP in the world, like make a reason beyond like some of the stuff they did in SOD with like PvPing, like in Stranglethorn Vale was pretty cool. Like I'd like to see more things like that in open world, where like controlled zones offer benefits, even things that we've noted on before. Like I've always hated dishonorable kills. That's the craziest thing ever. Like there should always, I think it's really cool when players band together and go kill like a city boss. That's pretty cool. It's a community driven thing, and like I don't care. Throw loot on the city bosses. Throw a loot table on them like once a week. Who cares?
Yeah,
It'd be
I've got
super
some
dope.
pretty big ideas for something like that, but I'd probably would need like a half hour to talk about it. But
Well, you saw my post today, right? About a season of war, a PvP season.
yeah, that's like an episode. And I liked a lot of your ideas.
I'm glad somebody did.
No, I'm sorry if I didn't respond to it. Like,
no, that's okay.
I liked a lot of it.
Yeah, so one of the things, Alth, that you wrote about was, and you sort of mentioned this earlier, I think, how do we kind of keep this within the spirit and soul of vanilla? And I think you just touched on some of that, right? Like being out in the world, emergent gameplay. I think you can promote emergent PvP by, like you said, having a lot of zones have a reason to PvP. Like for instance, I don't know if it's still a thing, but I'm pretty sure it's still a thing in modern WoW with war mode. Sort of like supply drops that occur in the area, and you go and you fight over it, and then like let's say in EPL or Western Plaguelands, a supply drop or an activity pops, and you go and your faction conquers it, and now all of a sudden you've got access to like 20 rich thorium veins for 2 minutes, and the other faction's kept out of that like through a bubble or something. And so like, there's a reason to go do it. Yeah, like emergent gameplay, and I think the community aspect of requiring not requiring a guild, but like requiring others for some of these things to occur. Like solo content is awesome and it's necessary, but there has to be enough friction in the world and in the experience to promote group play.
I mean, I think one of the best examples of promoting group play was during the PvP event when everybody banded together to kill the Loa. Like,
sure. Well, they did a great job with
over
those,
Nation Vale.
Bro, I bet they put I straight up bet they put a loot table on that Loa during the event. Like, oh shit, we better do this fast, guys, because the players figured this out. Like, did they think that we would do that? I don't know. I think they just like went for it.
Yeah, my idea is kind of like if you think of the towers that you can control in EPL, and you basically turn the faction into ally controlled, and then have different levels of that. So if like you have like level 1 control, then like you get a buff, or like the opposing faction gets a buff to like kind of bolster against you. But if you keep holding out, you can eventually like turn the zone into like full ally control, meaning like you can get reinforcements coming in from Stormwind and have like a guard presence of like level 58 elites in that area. And while it's under ally control, like nodes respawn 1,000 times faster. So if you have a full alliance control, like, and I mean like heavily controlled, you can farm there, like free farm materials there, and it has like all the Black Lotuses that you want respawn way faster. Rich thorium veins respawn 100 times faster. You can just be in there making money, and then maybe there's something to do with your faction city. Be like, okay, we need to start a war effort. So they're going to send a war band out there. So they have like these NPC units that could go out to EPL to go try to bust the horde up. And it's like, who knows? Maybe they do like an instanced raid or something to go and take the zone back. Like, maybe we get it like clear for 24 hours to farm out of it. And everyone knows that when that timer expires, everyone can queue up for this, war party that can come raiding it or something.
That'd be really cool.
I don't know. That'd be fun.
Out of curiosity, did anybody other than me play Final Fantasy 11?
Maybe. I don't remember at this point.
So 11 had a conquest system. Now 11 didn't really have much of a PvP scene. It had like a PvP mode, and that was it, like a war game type mode called Ballista. But it had a conquest system that was pretty neat. So 11 had 3 starting cities, which were kind of de facto starting factions. And if you were to go and level within a zone, you would accrue points, conquest points, that would count for yourself that you could spend on gear and items, but it would also accrue conquest points for your faction. And let's say, all right, so if I start in Bastok and I go and level in a zone for Sandoria, which is like the home of the elves, if I go and level in their starting zone, like in their Elwyn Forest, if we get enough people there to level, we actually take control of that. And there are these outposts that you go to. These outposts in that zone allow you to learn a warp spell that warps you from your starting city all the way across the world to that zone, to that outpost. So when your faction controls that zone, you have access to that outpost, and you can warp there directly at basically no cost. When you also control that zone, the NPC vendors in your home city gain access to items that they will only sell, like certain weapons, certain armor, certain consumable products and trade products. They will only sell it if you control that zone. So I think like you're kind of talking something similar in that regard. Now that was like per week. So maybe you're talking maybe like per day or per hour or however long, that would persist. But I really think that there's something that they could do, sort of mixing your idea, mixing the conquest idea from Final Fantasy 11 and probably some other things from games like Warhammer Online and others, where they could really bring the war back to Warcraft without what they try to do in games and expansions like BFA. Like, it's not about the storyline of the war and simping for Sylvanas. It's like bring the emergent gameplay and PvP back into the game through these kinds of ways to motivate the players. And while they're doing that, they're continuing to enforce the faction balance so that we don't turn into Benediction or Faralina.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I said, it's a good thing, but a tough thing. There's so much to it, like the resource management here in SOD, like when they gave us bigger bags, it like opened up the game for me. I could do more stuff
as a tank, especially, right? Like,
yeah, and like the key ring, all the collectibles they added to the game was actually pretty fantastic. We still go back and like to old content to find shit. Like the Gnomer mount was cool as shit. Like everybody loves mounts in raids. Like, and we're one of those guilds that like we don't let people reserve the mount in raids. Like it is a bitch roll situation, and like and if you've already gotten the mount. Yeah, if you've already gotten the mount, you don't get to roll next time, kind of thing. It's fun. It brings more. I just know I implement those rules because it brings a more community aspect to the raid. It's more fun.
Oh yeah,
and
love a good roll off. So,
I mean, for guilds like us, like removing GDKPs was a good thing, and I know for a large of the community, it's a community. Some other community members that aren't part of our team don't like that. Obviously, it's not good for them, but.
I did not care. I have a guild. I don't pug.
Yeah. But I guess if you could like add one thing to Classic Plus, let's just pretend that like the state of SOD, where it's at, because this is a beta in many ways. If you could add one more thing, or what would it be? Just really easy. What would it be that you would add that you'd absolutely want?
More 5 and 10 man content.
Yeah,
like the heroic plus system.
If they, if SOD or Classic had heroic dungeons or mythic dungeons, I think it would open some tremendous doors. I think the players from retail would flock to playing mythic level dungeons in this atmosphere.
A
I think
mythic BRD? Are
Oh,
you fucking kidding me? It's already like a 3-hour. If you actually do it, and
would
you're
be
not
the worst one to do
overpowered,
it on.
The marriage breaker
But,
dungeon.
I mean,
Man.
that would be, some of the
Yeah.
dungeons would have to be reworked in that setting, but it add mechanics to that. There's so many dungeons that were that they've already redone. Just use some of that.
Hmm.
That's my that would be my request.
what about you, Qui-Gon?
I think that it's not even like for what necessarily like I want, like my dream thing. I think for the health of the game, you have to continue expanding the world through new zones, new subzones, new quests, new dungeons, both at leveling and both at max, and continue expanding all of the unfinished content that was supposed to exist in vanilla. Now that includes, for instance, like wasn't Kel'Thalas supposed to be in vanilla? I know like Karazhan was supposed to be a vanilla raid. So there's tons of stuff. Like we can talk about like all the stuff in Kalimdor, like all the Furlbog and the Timbermaw stuff. There's supposed to be like a dungeon or whatever, or a raid. And Grim Batol continue to expand the world that should have existed if we hadn't gone to TBC.
Yeah.
Side note, hot take. I don't know that I want this in Classic Plus, but I would love to see a short season where we do more of the scaled back SOD content, and just for a season, just to see how the people handle it. I think it would be interesting to add in looking for dungeon. Maybe not for true Classic Plus, but give it to us in a season, see how the community reacts. And maybe, you have to go and clear the dungeon and go to the dungeon, clear the dungeon, complete a quest, and then you can queue for it and be teleported and do all that. So you
That'd
sort
be a
of
fair
have
compromise.
to. I think so, right? Like, and
Although
for
I
crying out
just
loud,
want Dungeon Finder regardless. But if you were going to make a big stink about it, I think that's a fair compromise.
Also,
so-
summoning stones.
Yeah, I said, all right, I'll allow it, but your first part, I think that goes without saying. Yeah, obviously, if we could, I think that's more than one thing. Expanding the world, finishing the world. I think I think it's like a big chunk of the pie. A huge chunk. I think, yeah, the LFG is like a tidbit. It's like that would be cool. We have summoning stones in the map and the geometry. Like, why not turn those on? I don't really see why not. Those would be nice. Because I personally am not an LFG fan. I like the fact that I have to travel to a dungeon because I like anything that puts me in the world, but I'll go ahead and tell you mine for, what I would, if I could add one more thing, the current, at the current state of STOD, it's going to Classic Plus, and I can add one thing. I want an option to change my graphics to retail graphics, and it'd be the same. Still SOD.
Unreal Engine.
Yeah, that's working out well for Chrono Odyssey this week, isn't it? So when you say retail graphics, okay, do you mean like literally the War Within style of graphics, or do you mean like the HD Cataclassic graphics that they released?
Yeah, whatever looks super cool, because I love the shininess of retail. The best way to put it. I'm not a retail guy, but I like the way it looks. It looks great. It's a great looking game, and I would love to have that in a classic setting.
Yeah, that's potentially a very a hot take there. I respect your bravery on that, because there's a lot of people. I don't think I could speak for Boris here. Like, there's a lot of people that do not like the Disney aesthetic, that they've lost the gritty aesthetic, the floaty feeling. Like, it doesn't feel like the abilities have the same weight as they do in Classic.
I can see that, because
I don't like the physics engine of retail. I would say Kata.
I like the sparklies.
I went like Kata.
maybe you're right, because like you're right.
But maybe it's just more
retail does feel kind of like Pixar at times.
Yeah,
the spell animations, if they had that level of detail, would be fantastic.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, I think
derpy too now.
Keep the aesthetic, Maybe, HD upgrade all the character models, maybe make it so, we're actually holding our equipment instead of just like it being pasted onto us. Yeah, I think again that comes back to like they have to have a real dev team. Like this could be their like if they want to continue the storyline of what's going on, and maybe that leads to a WoW 2, then let Classic Plus be for the rest of us that will gladly pay the $15 a month and give us a home and give us a real home. All right, so if you said mine earlier was too big, I'll put this in there. We need evergreen content like housing in Classic Plus.
Yeah, that's like a feature. Yeah, a feature. Yeah, housing is cool. Yeah, I think that's nice.
Yeah, give people a reason to keep living in the world.
Oh shit, I changed mine. Guild banks. Give me a goddamn guild bank, bro.
Well, yeah, I mean they've got to add guild banks and crap like that. I mean, that's a huge miss if they don't add stuff like that.
So much time I've spent during AQ because I collected all the mats on my character for the guild. Everybody messaging me, needing this, needing that. I'm like, I wish I could just have a deposit.
What you need.
Yep. And yeah. So I'm just moving on. Ben, what would you add to the game? Or
I'm going to stick with my more 5 and 10 man content, with the caveat that I would like to see some more challenging content. I think some of the I think overall Classic is just an easier game, and I would like to see. I thought Charlotte Enclave was a refreshing change of pace, but still compared to even Kata is not mechanically challenging.
Yeah.
So I would like to see more challenging 5 and 10 man content.
All right. Fair enough. All right. Could we, off the top of our heads, think of something that doesn't exist currently in the world of Warcraft and add it? What would you add? Like one little, like let's say like
my
feature.
Answer to this question.
Some feature. Holy, did you not answer the last question?
No, I didn't.
Damn it. All right. So yours is a.
But I will answer. I will answer your
bridge.
Yeah.
Yours is
so
the bridge.
Because actually, my answer to the previous question directly ties into what you were talking. I want to see the abolishment of the auction house, and I have a much better idea.
That's a hot take.
Yeah. So every major city has an apothecary. It has a blacksmith. It has a weaponsmith. Why can't I go to the apothecary or the potion master or whatever you want to call it? Why can't I go there and buy my Mighty Rage potions or my Greater Fire Protection potions? And why can't they have a set standard price? And if their stock were to run low, why can't they have dailies for players to go and craft the potions that their stock is running low of to refill them? And why can't a player get a reward for replenishing that? And if the community participates in these daily activities so much, why couldn't that go to fund a system, where the city, if it reaches certain thresholds, would, put on a big event or offer these other quests or these other dungeons or the others more lucrative, more fun, adventurous, or war parties or raiding parties or these other things. Like, why do I need to have a system that perpetuates bots, like an open auction house? Maybe they could come up with a whole different system to replace that. And it could be really cool.
That's one of those things where it's like I would immediately argue, oh, what happens if people don't submit potions? Same thing for current. What happens if people don't submit potions?
And the NPC will always have them, but it's more of like a plot device. Like, oh gosh, we're running low on these. Can you do your weekly to help restock these? But the guy's always going to have them. And it's also a way of like taking money out of the economy so it doesn't get inflated. So instead of money always like going between hand in hand and causing inflation, because that, people are buying consumables, the gold is coming from somewhere and it's just going between other players' hands, going back and forth. And then there's also methods of just creating raw gold from the game. Just everything's going to inflate. But if when you buy the consumables, what you need to play the game, and it goes back into the game, then it's going to counteract inflation. So it'll also provide market stability. I've thought a lot about this, but anyway,
I want to jump in and piggyback off of what you just said. So my feature that has never existed in the game that I know of, kind of piggybacks a little bit off of that in a way. Let's say we have guild banks, right? We have guild banks. I want to set up a guild store for the guild where it's like, let's say I have a huge stock of Flask of the Titans in guild. I can set a price for them, and you guys, members, buy them, and the money goes to the guild, goes to the guild bank. And then I can inadvertently use those funds to buy things like Runecloth right now and make world buffs. So I could set up like my own little guild shop where like the team could just buy from the guild versus, all the other stuff. I've always thought like a team shop would be cool where I could like, oh, we got a big stock of these potions. Oh, we have a stock of like the guild. Oh, frozen runes are perfect. A perfect example of like, we get frozen runes from Nax, and all you got to do is put them in the guild bank, and they cost, I don't know, 3 gold a piece for us.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I had other ideas too, and that it would get the guild more active and involved, because you still want to be able to trade privately with people, but no one's ever going
all that
to.
stuff still exists, but it's like, hey, we sell the guild frozen runes to the guild. Here they are. They're only 5 gold a piece from the guild bank, or you can go in the auction house and they're like 10. Like I obviously I'd set them at a lower price, but it's a great way for us to get our consumes and give back to the team. And I have to use those funds to world buff the team every death, basically, and that costs gold. So another like internal economy within a community, or and even things like did they ever implement like a guild tax where you could set up guild taxes like on purpose?
Oh Lord! Well, they had like the guild perk that was effectively a tax, but it didn't actually penalize you. You just got extra gold flowing into the gold bank. That was in the original Kata.
Oh, it's like when people would like loot something, a part of that gold would go to the guild bank.
Gold to be generated for the guild bank. Holy, you might be interested in systems like in 11, Final Fantasy 11, you could sell items on yourself. We had like a bizarre feature, and like
RuneScape.
Yeah, and so like you can put those items for sale. People can inspect your personal shop, and then they could buy from you directly, but they don't have to actually interact with you. You don't have to trade them. Final Fantasy 14 and its 1.0 version, there was no auction house, and you basically used an NPC to sell your items for you, and then people would search through all the NPCs that players had posted in the marketplace, and you looked for the best deal. It was kind of like obviously like really cumbersome, but there are like those ideas exist and they've been tried. I think that'd be potentially really interesting.
If there is going to be an auction house, I want it to be like work more of on a consignment kind of thing, and I want it to be heavily taxed. That's kind of how I want it. And price fixing would also be nice too. Like
I think it would be nice instead of auctioning.
Things have a price, Things need to just have a price. Like setting your own prices. It works nice in the real world, but it just over a long period of time it just ruins game economies.
Yeah,
I guess they sort of have this in retail, but I've always wanted a commission board. I think they sort of have this with the I don't remember what the word is that they use in retail, but you can basically put out there like work orders, I think is what it's called, the work order system. Something like that would be really cool in Classic. Like
not in that state. It's so
it's cumbersome. It's complicated.
It's really awful.
Yeah, but like if I go on the auction house, rather than somebody selling Lionheart Helm for this amount of gold, what if I just like put the materials on there and say, I'll pay you, 200 gold for this with my materials, or I'm looking to buy this for 1,200 instead of 1,400. Does somebody want to sell theirs?
If it's simple, then perfect. But the one they have in retail is not simple because there's way too much variance to it.
Like I need a Lionheart Helm. Here's my gold. I'll pay 1,000, and it just sitting on the auction house, and somebody can go out and make one and get that money for it if that's what they want to do.
I think Guild Wars 2 actually does that. I've played Guild Wars 2 a little bit, and I think that's how their auction system, or I think that's part of how their auction system works. So again, let's steal from these other games and other modes that are successful, and why not incorporate them? Let's try it. I think that the thing that I would add, I mean, I think it would be cool to see like a warband type system in Classic to create some connection between your alts. But something that's never existed any version, like again, let's make it about stuff happening in the world. Imagine if enough, like, you know, we get the local defense channels going. Imagine if enough world PvP is going on, like battles in South Shore and Terran Mill. NPC mages appear in the city and actually open portals to those zones. And then you just start flooding people in and getting people into combat and into the fight quicker to turn the tide. Things like that would be really cool.
What about you, Ben?
Sure.
I would like to see similar to the in-game housing in maybe like actual purchasable real estate for guilds in cities to have guild halls.
Like non-instanced
Guild halls. Like if you think back to the early days of like Ultima Online,
Yeah.
they didn't exactly have that, but there were similar things. But in those, I think
Like
it would be. Yeah, did Lineage do that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool. I think it would be cool to have large scale guild crafting objectives, like maybe a guild airship that could be used to, you know, maybe there's a PvP where you have to all get in cannons, like it's you know, and there's some kind of a PvP event between guilds, or you know, there's, you know, all there you can purchase a flask table, you know, with
Oh my gosh.
you know,
The guild that brought it up, the guild airship. You unlock the guild airship, takes a lot of materials to make, and like once a week we can choose where there's like certain points they unlock on the map where you can choose where the airship goes, and only our guild can take it and travel that way.
Oh.
I think it'd be cool.
in the Blizzard shop they sell different skins for it, and you can make it look like the battle.
That's how we play.
Fortnite,
that's how we pay for our dev team.
I'll do anything to swipe my credit card.
Guild versus guild events and activities. I think that's really what we need. Like incentivize, because Classic's all about the server identity and your personal reputation on the server and guilds' reputations. Let's expand the guild reputation more than just Warcraft logs. Like, you know, we got a problem with a guild on the server. Let's take it to guild versus guild combat, dude. That would be so much fun.
Blow your planet up.
Yeah, our airship's better than your airship, and we're about to prove it. You know.
Yeah. Well, guys, I really appreciate you coming on to the show. Obviously, you'll be back, but I want to give a big shout out to everybody tuning in and coming up. I mean, we have a lot of episodes planned, a lot of different content. Luckily, I have a team of like 40, 60 something people, you know, they could like chime in and like provide ideas. And, you know, in the future, we have like, you know, I literally an episode on just leveling, you know, streamer versus player, who gets heard the most, boost, and literally an episode on boosting, because that is, well, boosting is a big thing. It's a big topic. And everything down to, you know, what's like to lead a guild and lead a team, what it takes. But yeah, again, Qui-Gon, Ben, thanks for being our guest today. And it's been great.
Thanks for having us, man.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
This was blast.
Thanks for coming on, guys.
We'll catch you guys in the green room.
All right.